Sorry about that. Sleeping at the switch there.
Hey,
The gavel. All right. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. Today is October 20th, 6 o'clock, our regular scheduled meeting of the Board of Trustees.
we'll call the roll. Mr. Genowine?
Here.
Mr. Crandall?
Here.
Mr. Mahoney?
Here.
Simcoe, here.
Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
And join me next one.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have approval of the minutes? Any questions or anything of that nature?
I'll move approval of the minutes for October 6th.
Second?
Mr. Genowine?
Abstain. I wasn't present at that meeting.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes. Do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda, John?
I have none.
Do we have anybody that'd like to speak on the agenda items tonight from the public?
No.
Zoning Department, Daryl?
Good evening.
Evening.
I just have a brief monthly report for the month of September for zoning. Under zoning permits, we issued 50 permits for the month, which is exactly the same amount we had a year ago. We're down in estimated value for the month, but year to date we continue to be strong versus the previous 2 years. We're just shy of $50 million in estimated value. On single-family dwelling permits, we're still running just behind last year. We had 73 permits issued through the month of September, and that's 2.7% down and about the same percentage down in dollar value versus last year. What isn't down is zoning complaints, continuing to move right along. Up on the month, 24%, and up 38% on year-to-date. Monthly meetings for the zoning department. The Board of Zoning Appeals heard a case from All-American Coach, who continues to expand. They purchased two lots on Argonne Place. They were zoned commercial. They demolished a house there and wanted to put up a 6-foot-high fence with barbed wire. They needed to get a variance on that, and that was approved. And then the Zoning Commission heard the zone change request that the Board of Trustees heard at their last meeting for 5578 Centennial Road, the former Democratic Club of Sylvania, where the self-storage facility is to be constructed. And that is all I have.
Daryl, when is the war zone meeting?
That is November 9th. I think it is the second Monday of November 9th.
Okay, thanks.
4:30 p.m.
Appreciate it. All right, thanks, Daryl. Appreciate all your hard work.
Thanks, Daryl. Rob, do you have anything for the trustees? Do the trustees have anything for Rob? Chief?
Good evening.
Hi, Chief.
Hi. I'll try to keep it brief also. You have before you the September monthly report. First 2 pages are our incidents. We continue to show a slight increase in our incidents over what we had the previous year. Pages 4, 5, and 6 are our mutual aid requests. We had several mutual aid requests from to Toledo and Springfield for ambulances, and some also another request. Life Squad ended up taking a patient because there were no ambulance available. And we had a first in the time that I've been here is we transported a patient by an engine. It was the best interest of the patient. They were very close to Flower Hospital. It was just a block, and they took the patient to Flower. Page 7 is our community risk reduction. 3 public education events. We installed 1 smoke alarm. Deputy Chief Freilich did 6 consultations for local businesses and school regarding safety. He had 12 plan reviews, 4 license inspections, 4 daycares, and 7 final acceptance tests for alarm systems. He had 4 Freedom of Information Act on requests, and our crews completed 360 inspections. The following pages are training. The month of September was our ACLS training. Every paramedic had to recertify in advanced cardiac life support. So that was, everybody got through it successfully. We also had the guys trained with the truck operations. We did a walkthrough of the new Mercy emergency room at Central and King that is now open and is open 24 hours. And then we started to conduct our annual hose testing. Every year we have to test all of our hoses and certify that it's up to par. Crews did additional training, CERT training at Northview High School for the MedTech program. And then we participated in hazardous materials training with the Ohio EPA. The last page is some interest. I know a few weeks ago or a few months ago we talked about strokes. We have a new protocol in the county, a race alert, and basically it's based on what the patient's score is if they're having a stroke and whether we take them to a hospital that is an intervention hospital that can either bust the clot or take the clot out of the person's brain. And there are 3 intervention hospitals in Lucas County. One is UTMC, one is St. Vincent's, and the other one is Toledo Hospital. We had 8 race alerts during the start of this in July 1st. Our average on-scene times was 14 minutes, which is really phenomenal. So we're on scene, evaluate the patient, call the race alert, and leave en route to the hospital. And again, it's all about saving time. If we save time, we save brain tissue. So the guys are doing an excellent job with that. And we'll keep an eye on that throughout the rest of the year. That's all I have.
Thanks, Chief.
You're welcome.
Nice, Chief. Nice job on your safety fair.
Thank you. We're going to have pictures
annual.
next month. We'll show you all
Oh,
that.
that
Look
was,
forward to it.
that gets bigger every year.
It does.
Appreciate the effort that people put into that.
Good evening.
Hi, Chief.
I've got the monthly report up on the screen, and you'll see on page 2 our number of calls. Those total 7,994 total calls into dispatch. Page 3, we had 1,155 calls for service. You can see year-to-date we're down on calls for service, but it's amazing how much we're trending right on what we were last year in injury accidents, property damage accidents. Unfortunately, we have had 4 fatals in the township reported to OSHP. But then our burglaries, robberies, domestics, everything is almost exactly where we were last year at this time, year to date. The only exception is we continue to see a dramatic increase in identity thefts, which kind of matches with some of the stuff you're seeing on the news with the IRS call scams and all that kind of a thing. And that's really, and then our thefts are up. Walmart continues to keep us very, very, very busy. And you can see that with all our other reports, we're still pretty much trending what we did last year. Page 4, our prisoner transport cost continues to be a pretty low number. That number is based on just what helping the city out doing their transports has cost us. So we're doing very well on that. Page 5, detective caseload stats. You'll see 62 cases assigned in the month, 42 of which were cleared, keeping 20 active. They cleared an additional 27 from prior months, so they cleared 69 total cases, all in the right-hand column there. DEA task force, I'll let you read that paragraph there. The detective there, they're working a big case, and you may want to, at your leisure, read that paragraph there. It's a little interesting what they're working. Big time guy. Hopefully they're able to deal in a lot of different places. Fort Wayne, Defiance, and some things like that. Page 7, National Drug Drop-Off Day was Saturday, September 26th. You'll see we collected 119.1 pounds of over-the-counter and prescription drugs, which is a whole lot of drugs. The schools, we're in 3 of our 4 dare school or elementary schools now. Stranahan traditionally is taught in the spring, and you'll see that right now too, especially with the new rules from the state as far as schools conducting evacuation drills and lockdowns and such. We're doing a lot of those now. They fax us a date that they're going to, a date and a time they're going to do it, and then we send our community affairs officers over there to monitor it to make sure there's no issues that they can identify and it's done safely. And obviously they'll throw out suggestions if they see any kind of issues or problems or whatever. Speed trailer, you'll note the 4 different lake locations along Flanders Road there. One of which is Flanders. Mr. Simcoe, I'm sure you're interested in that. And Mr. Jakes, who I think you know pretty well, had called me on that. So we're trying to stay on top of that. And page 8, slow month for the K-9 officer. Page 9, you'll see our overtime for the month. And on page, I believe I've got a page 10 here. Page 10, with the property room and forfeiture report of note, you'll see the biggie is the second one down. That is money that we were able to deposit based upon our detectives work in the DEA task force. And then you just got fine money there from courts and that sort of thing. And 2 pages you don't have that I'm going to have, well, 1 page that you don't have that is not a big deal, but I'm going to have Nancy start including it. Our administrative sergeant files the charges for the midnights and afternoons to save us money now. And there were 36 charges filed in the month on 21 different suspects. And it's broken up by the shifts, but it's predominantly midnights and afternoons, as you can imagine. And then the last thing is I just got a nice letter from Brian Hall, who is the director out at the at Paysetter. Just a nice letter. They were experiencing some reckless op and things like that out in their parking lot. And Sergeant Whalen and Community Affairs got on it pretty quickly, and he was pretty pleased. We've been working off duty out there. It's done now, but to monitor for some of that activity. And he just emphasized in his email the cooperation, the quick response he gets out of the PD, and the good relationship. So that's all I have.
Great report.
Okay.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Next up is the administrator, and the first item Susan will address.
I have a resolution 15-125 that I'm asking to be approved tonight. It's amending our group insurance policy. Under the Affordable Care Act, the final regulations require us to do a lot of defining on how we determine who is entitled to insurance. And under the Affordable Care Act, it specifically states 30 hours a week. That's what dictates that. So that being said, then we have to also go into a lot of detail and describe how we are going to determine that 30 hours. There's like an initial eligibility period, a stability period. It just goes on and on. We have to keep track of every single person's hours, whether they're full-time, variable, whether they're a seasonal employee. It gets to be a lot of record keeping, but they do require that our policy be amended so that it's not all written out here, but in general, it describes how that's going to be done.
I'll offer Resolution 15-125, approve amended group insurance policy.
Second.
Call the roll, Mr. Crandall.
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney.
Yes.
Mr. Genoway.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Susan. Last meeting we had on the agenda a notice of public hearing for street lighting Brookside Plat 6. I request that the trustees open the hearing to see if anybody would like to speak to it, and then if not, we'll close it.
I'd like to open the hearing to street lighting Brookside Plat 6. Anybody like to say anything? I'd like to close the meeting. Close the public hearing to street lighting Brookside Plat 6.
And then I request that we pass Resolution 15-127, which is the approval of the street lighting for Brookside Plat 6.
I'll move approval of Resolution 15-127.
Second.
Calling the roll, Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Once again, at our last meeting, we advertised a public hearing for street lighting, a hearing for street lighting, Park Place Plat 5. I request the trustees to open a hearing. If anybody would like to speak.
I'll offer a public hearing for street lighting Park Place 5, Plat 5. Try to say that 5 different times. Park Place Plat 5. Park Place. I'd like to close the public hearing to Park Place Plat 5.
If you're going to say it, do something different.
I can't even say it twice.
Then I'd like to
I'll offer a resolution 15-126 to approve the street lighting for Park Place Plat 5.
Second.
Calling the roll, Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Next up is Mr. Simcoe.
Well, we have a couple of resolutions. One's a transfer of appropriations, resolution number 15-123, to cumbersome fund for fire trucks, or for a fire truck.
I'll offer resolution 15-123, transfer appropriations for fire trucks. Truck parts or vehicles and accessories.
Yeah.
Second.
Call the roll, Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
And then secondly, we have resolution number 15-124, and it's accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor. And these have been reviewed by our offices, by Scott in particular, by Vicki and by myself. And basically, the Budget Commission forwards us the monies that they anticipate that we will receive in that, and then this is and we have to review it and acknowledge and say that we agree with these numbers. And if we don't, of course, we let them know in that. And one time we did have that. It's about maybe 8-10 years ago, where we looked and we found an error. Wasn't when Mr. Smith was in the auditor's office. But we did, and we were actually right, and there's a little miscalculation. And so we do look them over because we then use these numbers. These help us when we're working on preparing our budget, because this is our revenues that's coming in. And so we need to pass a resolution approving these numbers and then sending it back down to the auditor's office.
I'll move approval of Resolution 15-124.
Second.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
And then lastly, we have the September month-end packet for you to review. And but I think we review this each month, but we're starting to see the year now. We're 3/4 of the way through the year, and so things are kind of taking better and better shape in that we get a better handle on how we're doing. And so if you really look at our expenditures, and as we know, we watch these closely, they should really be at about 75%. And as you can see, our expenditures are down this year, are below that. And so I think that obviously that's good for us because, again, they're all below what they would be expected to be. So we are watching our expenditures. And then really looking at the revenue side, our revenues are, I think, very good, really, too. All of our tax receipts have really been received. We'll still be receiving some additional funds coming in from, like, the franchise fee and stormwater utility, and there's a couple EMS payments that are due for the fire fund. And so we should be at 100% for all of our revenues. And so that is a little bit more, predictable because of what we just passed in this resolution, and that it's the expenditures is what we're always really trying to watch and keep a handle on. And I think the reason that we do well there is like really the cooperation that we have with the department heads and the employees and the administration. I go to the Ohio Township Association, as we all do, and some of the meetings I go to are fiscal officer meetings, and some of the fiscal officers there and some of the few trustees that attend those talk about the kind of battles they have with their employees and department heads on money and this kind of secrecy and things like that. And we really don't have that here. We have a cooperative attitude between the department heads and the employees and our management and the trustees. That we all work. It's all public funds. It's very open. What we try to do, I think, and the trustees really drive this, is everyone knows how much money we have available. And we try to prioritize spending, and we listen to the department heads, we listen to the employees, but they also see what money's there. And so they have to prioritize too, and that to help drive the township and keep us coming up with these sorts of good numbers. And so I think it's the cooperation that we really have here that helps us and the openness. And it's a two-way street. I mean, again, the trustees aren't hiding the ball here. The employees can see it all, and then they can help, and the department heads can help prioritize. And that's what we do, and I think that's why we're kind of doing well. And so I think these are good numbers.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Appreciate the breakdown.
That's all I have.
Do we have anybody for open, or do we have any discussion up on the board here?
We have nobody signed in.
Anybody sign in? Okay. Nobody signed in, okay. And we've got a couple of seniors at Notre Dame learning about government, so hopefully you'll recall how nice and smooth this went in your future attendance meetings. So, with that being said, we're gonna close our meeting at 6:25 and go into executive session to discuss employment in the fire department.
Is that a motion, Mr.
Make a motion, please.
Okay, and have a second?
Second.
Yeah. Okay, we'll call the roll. Mr. Genowine.
Yes.
Mr. Crandall.
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney.
Yes. So does that mean you guys get 3 months of 3 pay periods this year? The way it falls? Yeah. Huh?
Tell the boys we
Did you start it?
I did. So did mine.
was messed up again.
It's not going to start?
I don't know. I'm talking to Larry tomorrow.
Who's Larry?
Larry, he's like,
Cable guy?
yeah, Larry. He's like the guru,
Uh,
sire. I keep getting these other guys. Larry's the one who really knows our system.
Okay.
So
Is he local?
no, he's not local. He's out in Colorado, but he's who we've dealt with forever. So I have him.
Here. Let me help you. $200 an hour.
What?
You know what the?
Where's Crandall?
Are they on time material, John?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I hate calling our computer guy.
Um,
It gets really expensive.
with Sire, we have.
I think they were made-
Is that a contract we got, Ron?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is part of the maintenance.
I think you need to read this whole thing.
Well, no.
Oh, it just drives me nuts. Lucky, if I,
Same one as last time.
You can.
here's,
I got a son getting the Bobcat badge tonight. If I can
Oh,
figure this out.
let's go. We're not even going to. Sire sent us down, so that's the first badge. John.
It is.
Awesome. All right, we're back. We're back out of executive session at 6:46.
We have to make a motion.
Second.
And
Yeah.
Neil made the motion to come out of executive session. John Genowine seconded it. Call the roll. Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes. Okay. I'll offer Resolution 15-128, authorizing hiring of fire personnel. Therefore, resolved by the trustees of Sylvania Township, Lucas County, that the fire chief Kowalski be authorized to replace a recent retirement and hire 2 additional personnel, which will take the career full-time staffing assigned to platoon work to 28. 58, sorry. Be it further resolved, the fire chief to be authorized to hire as needed to maintain 8 employees on the part-time roster. Was that 8 or did we talk 5? 8? Okay.
Second.
We'll call the roll. Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
I'll offer Resolution 15-129, adopt a background investigation policy for the fire department. Whereas pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 505.381, an applicant will not be reappointed, or reinstated if she has been convicted of felony or found guilty of arson, unless this person meets the previously established rehabilitation standards. The results of the background investigation include fingerprinting, which will now be forwarded to the Township Legal Counsel to determine if the applicant is eligible. And last but not least, as part of the new hiring policy within the fire department, all applicants considered to be finalists off the active hiring list will be required to undergo a background investigation.
Second.
Call the roll. Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes, I'd like to close the meeting at 6:47-ish.
Second. Oh, go ahead.
Mahoney, Genowine.
Yes.
Calling the yes. Genowine, Crandall, Mahoney. Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay.
All right, we're done.
All right.
Yeah, well, thank you, Chief.
Well deserved.
John,
Way to go.
Susan